Dəfələrlə korrupsiyaya qarşı mübarizə ilə əlaqədar öz fikirlərimi bildirmişdim. Bugün də demək istəyirəm ki, bu sahədə də Azərbaycanda bütün işlər ən yüksək səviyyədə aparılmalıdır.
Salam değerli xalq, Azərbaycanda hakimiyyətin o cümlədən və özəlliklə...
Hello, dear people. There are things in Azerbaijan about the activities of the government, including the president, that we do not yet know about. We do not know about in time, yet this does not mean that we will never know about these activities. All secrets are revealed. Recently, Alexei Navalny and his team made a film about the palace of Vladimir Putin. And this film, in a sense, straightened up the stature of Russian society. People stood up and saw that the president is really a thief, although there were people who already knew about the corruption of Mr. President. However, most ordinary people were unaware that the fact that the president was a criminal. By the way, I said that Alexei Navalny's team. I meant there is a great one, the one with the team of investigative journalists. They work effortlessly. As Turan TV, we do not have a team comparable to that of Navalny's, although we also work hard with our small resources. Even though most Azerbaijanis know that Ilham Aliyev is a robber, and we have our share in this awareness, not less than others, if we take it as a percentage, perhaps our share is more in the matter of the acceptance of this knowledge by people. I will present you with the following exposure materials, dear Azerbaijanis. However, this is no ordinary theft. Also, this is a process of turning a country into a hostage of high-ranking government officials and the special services of another country in which Ilham Aliyev did all the work in this regard. Observant viewers know and remember that I reject the possibility of tension between Ilham Aliyev and Vladimir Putin in all of my programs and in all of the conversations. There is no such tension and cannot be. Why can't it be? Because the facts I will talk about now rule out the possibility of such tension. Vladimir Putin not only has a wide range of compromising materials against Ilham Aliyev, but each of these compromises mean real opportunities to influence and pressure. He can turn the tortoise upside down or kill it. If I call each of these facts as bombs, it means that the number of these bombs in Putin's hands is numerous times higher. Putin has the opportunity to drop some or all of these bombs on Mr. Aliyev's heads. What kind of tension can we talk about between these two when a person voluntarily ties his rope to the Kremlin with the dictates of greed? Of course, I will present you with a vast list of Ilham Aliyev's personal property, family businesses, and business facilities in Russia. My sources are not just of Russian origin, but also there are Azerbaijani ones. But I must admit that I was able to collect the materials for more than a year to present this documentary to all. All this is not just a theft, but as I said, a matter of national security. You may think that the State Security Service deals with issues related to the state's safety, and sometimes they can go out and put a bag on the head of a chief executive, take out a couple millions from the warehouse, and show it to the people as evidence. In other words, the operations carried out by these black masked men neutralize the elements that undermine the security of the state, send them to Kurdistani, and from there everyone is sent in the direction that suits him. Maybe the work we do is small compared to the work done by those masked groups. They know the truth and so on. However, there are things we do, and they're defined as work in this particular program. I will show you how the great and saint nobles exploit the country. I will show you the facts that pass through the stone. You can also shrug your shoulders and say, well, we already knew that Ilham Aliyev is a thief, a corrupt man. But you wouldn't say that again. Once again, I will not give you this chance. I will amaze you. If you're not surprised by these facts, nothing should excite you, and you can consider yourself a feeling aborted person. These are terrible issues. The capture of a country, its occupation. You can call it its expropriation in scientific language, or call it its privatization in a cultural lexicon. All this is terrifying. They are indicators of the ugliness of human soil and human greed. Of course, I present it with a religious epithet so that you will not be disappointed. These are the maps of the naughty and the disgusted greed of a victorious head of state. I do not intend to increase the level of severity, but in any case, I would like to add that this map of corruption is just a network of bribery, patterned by the public money, by private property from one bank. A state bank. From the state account. You get it, at the state's expense, but you document it in the name of the president's family. The scheme is straightforward and widespread in the Azerbaijani practice. Just as you set aside money from the president's fund for executives and then return it to the family. Besides, you order the executives to carry out construction or landscaping work at the expense of unknown internal resources, and when they can't fulfill the orders, the black masked group puts them behind bars. The same fate befell the head of this bank. The assets of the state bank headed by him paid for the business projects of the president's family, and then they put him behind bars and leave him to die as he is no longer needed. This fate is written destiny for all government officials, without exception. There was no individual with example of violating this fate. If they had an individual experience, Mr. Samir Sharifov, now the country's finance minister, who is on tenterhooks, would not hold that position even for a moment. Sources tell us that Samir Sharifov is now looking for an opportunity to flee the country as a government official with a signature on all of these crimes I have listed. But he cannot find this opportunity. I will talk about this topic after a while, and let's not rush. Now let's begin. And begin with what? Let's start with Moscow. A gigantic city of the world is also a major trade center. And there is no more reliable storage for Ilham Aliyev. What did he say to a famous Russian journalist? He said Putin would not sell it. Putin will not sell him out. If not, should he get something in return? For now, let's take a look at Ilham Aliyev's properties located in Moscow, which he considers as a reliable and trustworthy place.
Dünyanın bu nəhəng şəhəri, nəhəng də ticarət mərkəzidir və İlham Aliyev üçün buradan daha etibarlı saxlanış ola bilməz. Nə demişdi məşhur olduğu qədər də başa bəla Rus jurnalistə? Demişdi ki, Putin satmaz. Putin satmaz, yəni alar mı? Satmayacaqsa əvəzində nəsə almalıdır mı? Biz hələlik İlham Aliyevin etibarlı və güvənilir məkan saydığı Moskva mülklərinə baxacağıq.
Let's start with a shopping and entertainment center on Ryazan Avenue in Moscow. This large shopping center, of course, belongs to the Aliyev family. Perhaps in all the episodes, the expressions of "this object belongs to Ilham Aliyev's family" may bother you. So in the meantime, I will change the style of presentation. For instance, by stating that this is your president's property, house, or his damn property, and so on. The shopping center at Ryazan Avenue belongs to the family of the President of Azerbaijan, and for its construction and installation, some amount of the state's funds were spent, which is $278,941,310.56. It was spent as state funds, and the property is Mr. Aliyev's family's property. The property does not belong to the state. The state, as I said, spent $278 million on the construction of this facility. and I could not express how much of the family earns from this shopping center for a month. The Petroleum Fund also purchased a shopping mall similar to that in Moscow, and it was shown that this property has a monthly income of $6,000 as it is state-owned. And because this belongs to the family, and probably the monthly income might not be $6,000, but $600,000 as an example. If I made a mistake, black accountants of the family could correct me. Another property that is not exactly like this, but contains similar elements, is a large complex in Moscow on Nikitsky Boulevard with apartments for sale, offices, and a shopping area. The state spent $111,938,815.66 to construct this complex. I say these 66 cents because maybe those millions are not enough for someone to be impatient. And it is these 66 cents that need to be stated to lose one's patience. The property belongs to the president's family, confirmed by a source in the Ministry of Finance. I can justify the construction of a residential complex in this street with two arguments. The first argument, of course, is the city center. The second argument, a faculty of the Moscow State Medical Institute named after Sechenov, where Her Majesty once studied but could not get educated, is located on this street. Nostalgia, the traditional greed. Another large residential complex with a parking garage was built on Lenin Street in central Moscow. It would be shocking if there were no property on Lenin Avenue. This is the symbol of the generation. Vladimir Ulyanov's heirs must have a point at the address named after him. Of course, all the apartments here have been sold. And who is in charge of the property? For that, shortly afterward, and in general, Mr. Aliyev's management of the family property in Russia was entrusted to an Azerbaijani official with the nickname so-called Mysterious. You will all know who that person is. Be patient. That, do not be bored, do not worry. Mr. President, for his own sake. He has made so many businesses, built facilities, but how does he cope with them? Some people cope. The construction of this residential complex on Lenin Avenue cost the state treasury $144,810,092.27. A similar residential complex with a parking garage was built in Moscow on the mystical Astafyev Highway. And for the construction of the residential complex, $131,438,830.40 were spent. We have to be honest while accounting. We must be honest so that the president's family would not think that we are talking nonsense about their property or give a bad name to us. However it is, it must be honest. $168,951,382.24 were wasted on constructing a business center on the Mojaisk Highway in Moscow. The numbers may be tiring, but you have to listen. All I've said so far is the state money allocated from the Moscow branch of the International Bank of Azerbaijan, with the signatures of Samir Sharifov and the chairman of the central bank, Elman Rustamov, and the government officials. The next ones were distributed in the same direction. But among the next ones, there are those points that prove how bright the features of Ilham Aliyev's political cheeky are. Some might say it is all a theft. Why need to differentiate that which one has political significance, which one does not? But I will say, you will notice, in Moscow, $91,278,332 were spent constructing a huge building in the area called Yamsky Pole, which is both residential apartments and a business center. Not to mention the cents, because it's not that big of a deal. However, of course, this property also belongs to the family of Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. In comparison, a small estate on the Bolshoi-Savinskoy Bend in Moscow can be considered a tiny, inexpensive property. In total, $49,555,245.77. It is a painful task to fuss on such a cheap property, to calculate the future income from them, to fuss on how it will be managed, how to hide it. Only $50 million. Let's agree this one is not such an exciting theft subject. Azerbaijanis dislike the president for such things. So, you're a big man. You have a position of that size. You are the owner of the country, and 50 million is such a significant amount that you crave it. But I'm sorry, I'll be petty. There are even small thefts where even a tiny amount is taken. For example, in Moscow, penthouses with under-parking garage, which cost $4,122,233. On the Neznikov Bend, or again in Moscow to the direction of Narafominsk, penthouse for only $5,620,663.37 are insignificant theft elements. Such theft projects could be deemed proper by an ordinary minister or a chief executive. It does not fit the name of the president, however. I must speak again about a more significant and more noisy corruption project. I have talked about this object a few times, and not only me. A public organization called Arknadzor, which oversees the protection of historical monuments in Moscow, has sparked a scandal over the property I am about to talk about. Miss Ilham Aliyev, who bought the property, promised not to touch the facade, but kept its main building, taking into account its historical significance and the redesign of it, offering to have a business center, apartments, and parking, talking about a historic building known as the Prussian House on Moscow's first Tverskaya Yamskaya Street. The mayor's office agreed, but probably turned a blind eye to the process after knowing Miss Aliyev's true intentions. The building's facade was clad in the name of repair, and one day when Arknadzor came to see what was being done here, they lifted the curtain and saw that the building was demolished. The foundation was shoveled for reconstruction. This caused the scandal, and the issue was circulated in the Russian media. But later, Arknadzor was told that it would be erased from history if they would not keep silent. Arknadzor remained silent, hoping to remain in history. I guess that cause I contacted Arknadzor at that time, but they were afraid to interview us, and honestly said that we had to close this page. The president of Azerbaijan demolished this historical building on 22nd Tverskaya Yamskaya Street and added the building to his property, and he was victorious one in this war. Does Vladimir Putin know that Ilham Aliyev is buying property and creating his own map in the capital where he lives, spending hundreds of millions and cents to the right and left? Of course he knows. And the information that I have argued that Putin not only knows all of these, but he recognizes the reckless acts of Ilham Aliyev, the Russian citizen, as a manifestation of the natural market rules in the Russian real estate market. However, we are not finished with the Moscow real estate market. Continuing. For the construction of a logistics center near Moscow, the Aliyev family, with the documents knitted by Samir Sharifov, has acquired $77,018,822.75 from the Bein Al-Khalq Bank's Moscow branch. What can the Aliyev do? Where could they acquire this money from? Is there any other source in order to obtain such massive projects? Of course, there is no. And because of it, the president and his dear wife are obliged to steal from the government's treasury. I cannot judge them for that. There is greed. Greed impossibly big to pay. If you do not maintain that greed, depression can be lethal. Do not judge His Holiness for doing that. Do not push them so much. Although, these are not the facts that I have presented, more or less 10%. Additionally, I estimate that this is only 10% of the businesses and properties owned by Aliyev in Russia, because the things I have listed belong to a specific time frame. Let us say, in 2005 to 2015, only from a single source, part of the things that have been stolen from Azərbaycan Beynəlxalq Bank. However, no one can argue that the addresses and their value, they are correct even to the cent. For example, a building in this presentation can be valued at $200 million, but the actual market value could be $600 million. Nevertheless, let us continue in order to determine the borders of the president's infinite greed. Let us see what more things there are. In our list, there is left a building from Moscow real estate market, valued at only $10,500,000. Moreover, this valueless property is called a railway project, an apartment complex near 3 main train stations in Moscow, with a comfortable car parking underground. Even if Aliyev does not understand anything, he can easily guess the locations with an excellent real estate perspective due to his knowledge of Moscow. That is why all the properties listed here are located in the center of Moscow. It is also not complicated to calculate the value of these properties located in and around Arbat. This is around more or less $6 billion. Moreover, I did not make this value out of thin air. I contacted the experts on the real estate market, and they calculated the overall value for me. But I still do not cut ties with Russia. There are some of Mr. Aliyev's family businesses in Russia. For example, the purchase and repair of the famous Hermitage Hotel in St. Petersburg cost $81,062,096.36. The money was taken from the Moscow branch of the International Bank under the signatures of Samir Sharifov and Elman Rustamov, and of course was not returned. They have no intention to return, and they will not return. In fact, Ilham Aliyev sees Azerbaijan as a completely captured object. He thinks that everything in this country belongs to him. But how do you, Ilham Aliyev, justify this issue? Do you consider Azerbaijanis as the property of Mr. President or not? Take a hard look at the question. I apologize, but I have no doubt that Mr. Ilham Aliyev himself thinks so. That if he didn't think so, he wouldn't steal so much. Or he just wouldn't take it. Perhaps Mr. Ilham Aliyev and His Highness do not like the epithet of the thief, so they believe that the state funds they misappropriate are not stolen, but simply confiscated. After all, let's say, whether it's Moscow or Antalya, you can say that Azerbaijanis here can protest and shout that Moscow's abductions cannot be equated with Turkish crimes. Why? Because if a president who has rendered tireless services in the way of the Turan Union takes a total of 60,000 from the budget of or non-budgetary funds and spends on repairs of the facility, is there anything wrong with that? In fact, I would not have made these 609,000 conversations if I had not known in advance that 16 million had been spent on the construction of this facility. He took $16,267,540, built it, saw that it was missing, took 609,000 manats, and let's say repaired the sidewalk. Is this a theft? Of course not. And it is worse than theft. Dear Azerbaijanis, I'm going back to Russia. And what did I say? I said that Ilham Aliyev took 81 million to buy and build the famous Hermitage Hotel in St. Petersburg. Of course, the hotel manager was also changed. An Azerbaijani named Elshad Babayev, who drank halal milk, has been appointed director. However, they made some small light corrections to the name of halal milk. Worried that it would be met with hesitation in Russian society, Elshad Babayev heads the Hermitage under the name of Eduard Platonovich to facilitate the appeal of Russians. But there is a boss we can't find. This is the director of the artificial crystal production line established in St. Petersburg. In order to build and put into operation an artificial crystal plant, the excellent and noble Highness Aliyevs had to touch a single amount signed by Samir Sharifov and Elman Rustamov of the central bank. The crystal plant cost 45,153,371 or 99 cents stolen from Azerbaijan. This money also had to be stolen. The idea of theft belongs to Mr. Ilham Aliyev, the head of the state created by the Azerbaijan people, and the executors have fulfilled his guiding and directing instructions on this project. I can't say who put the idea of creating a plant to produce synthetic crystals in that St. Petersburg's in Aliyev's head. Perhaps some fraudulent business person whispered that the production line could bring decent income, and Aliyev instructed Samir Sharifov and the central bank chairman to allocate money for this purpose at the estimated cost. They also issued orders, signed them, and sent them to the Moscow branch of the International Bank. The Moscow branch also directed the funds to the account without questioning the crystal purity of His Majesty's family business. How much? Nothing. Not a penny. In total, $45,153,371. And in St. Petersburg, with the Aliyev brand, of course, this brand is not engraved on the crystals with the same inscriptions. They are scratched on the back. They start with this invisible brand in the production of synthetic crystals. If the subject is crystal, then let's talk about the natural ones, not the artificial ones. We will talk about bauxite. Do you know what bauxite is? Bauxite is an aluminum ore composed of aluminum hydroxide, iron and silicon oxides, and raw material to produce refractories containing aluminum and clay. The clay content of industrial bauxite is 40 to 60% and higher. It is used as a flux in ferrous metallurgy. Bauxite is currently the most important aluminum ore and the basis of the aluminum industry almost worldwide. Bauxites are complex rocks that include aluminum hydroxides, which make up the bulk of the ore mass, iron hydroxides, oxides, and silicates, silicon in the form of quartz, opal, and kaolinite, titanium in the form of rutile and other compounds, calcium and magnesium carbonate, as well as small amounts of sodium, potassium, zirconium, chromium, phosphorus, vanadium, gallium, and other elements. Bauxites come in all shades, from white to dark red, but are often brown or brick red. I explained to you what bauxite is, because you need to know what the ore your president knows. And your president knows that he was taught and explained where bauxite is mainly extracted. This is in a country far from Azerbaijan, in distant Guinea. But in the modern world, the concept of distance is conditional. If there is money from the state. The state gets this money mainly from the oil industry and does not give it to the citizens. What do you say to invest that money in the rocks of distant Guinea? What would you say? When Muzaffar was not yet a victor, when he could not turn the blow of an Azerbaijani soldier into the political maneuver for himself, he squandered a small part of the country's financial resources. A total of 35 million. Despite its rich bauxite deposits, Guinea is one of the world's poorest countries, and 35 million is a significant investment. That is, no one can blame Ilham Aliyev. What is the talk? Why do you carry hundreds of millions to other countries, only 35 millions when it comes to us? They don't care whether the president of Azerbaijan takes what he steals from his country's treasury to other countries for other industrial and production projects. It seems that we don't care either, but I'm just talking. I say that to my dear Azerbaijani. Should we get to know their presidents better and better? It is impossible to pray on His Majesty's feet without getting to know him better. But Israel is another matter. There is no one who doesn't know that Azerbaijan, and everyone is aware of the opportunities of our country, of course. We know approximately that the number of investments made by the President of Azerbaijan in the Holy Lands of Israel is several $billions. But for some reason, in addition to building a power plant there, the President decided to make a profit from Israel's energy sector, believing that it would not be bad part of the resources in his family's treasury to come from the sale of energy there. He said, decided, and did. $38,584,122.32 were spent from the state budget to construct a power plant in Israel. I repeat, this is a small part of the business Mr. Ilham Aliyev's family in Israel. But even a source of the Ministry of Finance leaked it to us by attaching a paragraph to his lists of information. So why not talk about the small $38 million power plant? I owe loyalty to Israel, and their harab is also sacred. So the theft of money deposited there is a halal certificate. However, I am 100% sure that the $45,237,480.28 coins allocated to construction a cotton spinning mill in the village of Vishny Volotsky, about 20 to 25 kilometers from Tver, near the Russian city of Tver, did not have a halal certificate. After all, there is a cotton boom in our country. At the end and the middle of each season, Mr. Aliyev gathers the polite officials of his circle and gives them a solemn report on the record set by Azerbaijan in cotton production.
Pambıq yığımı demək olar ki, başa çatıbdır və bu il rekord göstərici əldə edilib. 294.000 ton pambıq yığılıbdır və məhsuldarlıq orta hesabla hər hektardan 29.4 sentdir təşkil edib.
Frankly, I think you are also interested in the secrets of this sudden love of cotton of the Aliyev family. The secrets of this love are not necessarily related to breaking the record of cotton sticks in the 70s of the last century. There is also a place and a role for the child whose father walks the tree branches, but now is a pragmatic time. No one needs platonic love. Therefore, Aliyev trusts the future of the cotton he collects in his country as the Tver plant or the cotton spinning plant created in Kazakhstan. But it seems that I did not say that Aliyev's family took another $66,714,499.96 from the International Bank and established a similar plant there. At the same time, I would like to delight you with the news that another giant industrial enterprise has been established in Russia without a special break. After all, of course, we should be happy. What fantastic figures are measured by the personal fortune of His Majesty and His Highness the President. As a result of what beautiful and neat projects are accumulated, you would not know that there is a city called Stupino around Moscow. In itself, this small city should not have attracted the attention of many Azerbaijanis living in Moscow. It will attract you later. Go and see. In the small town of Stupino, Ilham Aliyev and his children have created an excellent paper and cardboard production at the expense of Azerbaijani state, which is dazzling. A total of $43,705,617.92. As a nation, do we need a cardboard and paper processing plant in Stupino? Of course, we do not. But our esteemed president needs it. Is it possible that Vladimir Putin personally instructed his Russian projects and that he is implementing them? Could there be such a current? I say maybe. In other words, Vladimir Putin advises, recommends, instructs our president to invest in the Russian economy. And instead of doing so, he puts his foot off the line. It does not invest in the name of Azerbaijan, but in its own name. Although he uses state money in all cases. Who owns the state? If there is a state in Azerbaijan, it belongs to Ilham Aliyev and his family, his children. If there is no state, then there is Ilham Aliyev himself, and this money belongs to him personally. Because as we said, there is no state. There was a state. It would have strategic and political interests. And now I will tell you that the fact that your body will tremble and you will be feeling the goosebumps. It may be a state secret, and to say this fact would be betrayal of the interests of the state. But I consider myself free from this responsibility because it is appropriate and I complain. We are talking about the absence of the state. Look, dear people, how does Azerbaijan treat foreigners who come to Nagorno-Karabakh? Breathed into that area, drank a cup of tea or wine. If the foreigner is not a Russian statesman, he or she is immediately blacklisted by the Foreign Ministry. After all, Nagorno-Karabakh is an occupied zone, our territory controlled by separatists, Armenia, and in parallel the Russians. This means that similar cases, they are not entitled to despise such interference by others in the occupied territories of the occupied territories. Moreover, if that other state is in a close alliance with Azerbaijan. But what did Ilham Aliyev do? With a gesture of Vladimir Putin's finger, perhaps at the instigation of his own greed, take a little straight $461,100,738.75 into the treasury of our state and invested in Abkhazia. Abkhazia was torn from Georgia as a result of Russian aid and the subversive activities. The world community recognizes Abkhazia as a Georgian territory, and Russia considers it a fictitious state. Although it has also distributed Russian passports to Abkhazians. As I said, Ilham Aliyev took about $500 million from our own state funds, and more precisely, the amount I mentioned earlier, to invest in industrial enterprises in Abkhazia. What will they do? Wine and wood industry enterprises. Fortunately, other facts and other documents can confirm this scandalous theft, and, moreover, the investment adventure that violates the strategic interests of Azerbaijan. Based on these documents, we can say what is included in Aliyev's Abkhazia project. With an investment of $460 million, the Aliyev family will develop the mining industry there, profit from the Sukhumi wood processing industry, become a partner in the Abkhaz fruit production company, do road construction. He would partner with his company, invest in the Sukhumi power plant, produce Abkhazian drinks, as I said, and so on. I use the verbs that I will do, and I will see because he will allocate money for his work to that separatist region. President of Azerbaijan. Greed has become so ugly that a person claiming to be the head of a state also invests in projects that run counter to the strategic and political interests of the country he represents. And I will not say that it is money stolen from the state. Isn't this a horror, poor, and miserable people of Azerbaijan? In fact, I really wanted to talk about this Abkhazian issue at the end, but from a tactical point of view. I could not bear it. From a tactical point of view, what does it mean to lack patience? After all, the documents confirming that the president is a thief and blatant traitor to the state's interests could cause a heart attack. So I said this fact. Let's talk about ordinary thefts. Maybe the shock effect gradually dissipated. I guess you don't know that the Aliyev family has an oil refinery in Albania. I was not so knowledgeable, But now I know that there is such a plant there, and Ilham Aliyev stole 152,898,567 from the people of Azerbaijan for this small oil industry created there for his family. I repeat, Ilham Aliyev built all these projects, which are a part of his family business at the expense of the state. He does not report to anyone and does not have to ask anyone to report to. Even when some people demand a report, the opposition, which he created for himself, jumps into the middle and claims that our country is poor and social spending is not available now. So wait. We will discuss small issues such as not starving people after the war. I do not want to talk about it now. Whether the packet or bus opposition is flirting on state channels, packing channels, let us shed light on the traces of the theft of our native president in other fraternal countries. For example, let's look at the sacred intentions of allocating another 35 million from the state for a working program called the Oil Project in the Middle East. Some claim that this is a budget allocated for oil cooperation with ISIS. But I am not so ruthless, and I think that this 35 million project is a business project created by the president to organize the sale of oil and fuel in Iraqi Kurdistan. A reliable source in the Ministry of Finance also focuses on this option. There are some other projects that I will not dwell on. For example, a total of 1 billion was stolen from the state for the production of steel and cotton fiber in Dubai, and only 30 million was squandered from the state for the production of soft drinks, which have been discussed from time to time. I have told them how stupid they were.
Sizə həmin kriminal süjetlər əsasında çəkəcəyi filmləri təqdim edəcək. Siz də bu sərt süjetli qəddar filmlərə baxıb Azərbaycanı necə qanlı və məkirli
How they spent 600 million and got used to selling it for 300 million because they can't work now. I think so too, and I'm shocked. Of course, our president has taken into his own account and has taken appropriate measures to help us as citizens. It is a film production and film distribution company established based on a project called A Company, which was stolen from the state budget, or rather transferred from the Moscow branch of the International Bank under the signature of Samir Sharifov for $44,149,580.02. This company will present you the films based on these criminal plots, and you will be happy to see that these bloody and insidious mafia rule in Azerbaijan. Moreover, as the main author of this cruel and criminal series, Ilham Aliyev, as he knows, concludes the finale. For example, I think that after a while it is possible that the Minister of Finance, Samir Sharifov, will soon be fired for his misconduct. And not content with that, he will be sent to prison for the patient director of the International Bank, Jahangir Hajiev. After all, who could claim that a former banker could allocate state funds for such dubious projects without the orders and instructions of His Majesty the Dictator? His Highness the First Aide and his father-in-law. He couldn't, of course. He could not. However, that is not the point. The main thing is that Ilham Aliyev writes these scenarios to expand and strengthen his political power over theft, glory over theft, and robbery. The rest are remnants. From the Prime Minister to the Prime Minister, they are all remnants, temporary remnants. In the course of this conversation, I mentioned that Aliyev family had just been abducted from a bank and that the addresses that they had been abducted in just 5-6 years had grown up. There are many such branches. There could be no initiative of Jahangir Hajiev or any other Azerbaijani official. As I said, now there are reports that Samir Sharifov will be killed. In any case, the source from the Ministry of Finance with whom I contacted to clarify this information claims so. Whether Aliyev cuts, this is his own farm. And what he produces, he grows on his farm depends only if he gets the money for these projects. From the International Bank or the Capital Bank, another treasury, or directly from the pockets of Azerbaijani people. An experience shows that Mr. President cuts from the pockets of the Azerbaijani people in all cases. Starting from May 2017, news headlines began to circulate in information space of Azerbaijan as the debts of the International Bank. The essence of this news was that the International Bank, which was 80% state-owned, had a debt of $3,337,105,084. The estimated loss for 2016 was $1,760,000,000. A year and a half ago, in December 2015, the president of the International Bank, Cahangir Hajiyev, was detained and sentenced to 3 months in prison. The bank's outstanding debts had been borne by someone, and this someone was, of course, the president of the bank, not the country. Of course, this is a very attractive sight. There is corruption, there is a tough fight against it. The president targeted one of his closest friends for the large-scale corruption, which was bound to gain him a significant rating. An uncompromising president, a brave and virtuous president, a determined president who had appropriated the money to the last penny. I had said earlier that the Minister of Finance and the Chairman of the Central Bank, who decided on the remittances, should have been responsible. They are responsible, but they will be responsible later. Each camel has its own order. However, I was silent about one person. Following the arrest of the president of the International Bank, Cahangir Hajiyev, there was a civil lawsuit against him, totaling 7,423,000 manats, where there were billions of machinations. This 7 million civil lawsuit should have looked very strange, maybe even ridiculous. It should have reminded me of a famous episode from a famous movie, Where is My Abbasi? The owner of this civil lawsuit was Mahmud Musayev, chairman of the Agrarian Credit Closed Joint Stock Company, known in Azerbaijan simply as Shapka Mahmed. Do you remember I said a while ago that Mr. Aliyev had a government official in Russian Federation who is engaged in important matters such as the management of property, inventory, directing the income of business facilities? This is Mahmud Musayev. Mahmud Musayev, known as Hat Mahmed. Well, if there is a farm, it is necessary to manage it, and I will remind you of this detail because you do not have the right to call this person Hat Mahmed. He is a man on the feet of adults. It should have made sense to participate in this process, which is surrounded by billions of lawsuits with only 7 million lawsuits. However, when the state undertook to repay the debt of the International Bank, such an official and interesting statement was issued on behalf of the International Bank. Debts arose abroad because of borrowers inside Azerbaijan did not return the money. It was absolutely right. The International Bank defaulted because borrowers did not repay the loan and did not intend to do so. There was only one person, a family, who took a loan from this bank and did not want to repay it. Never will return it. In fact, when he took the money, he did not take it back. It was His Majesty and their descendants. Not was, but it is now. They do not take to return. The state undertook to pay the money they embezzled. Can you see the silhouette of the state in this process? Can you distinguish how the president steals in the name of the state? In the name of the state, the president cuts off the stolen money from the income of the following years and then steals it again. And this process does not end. However, be sure to pay attention to one detail. What if all the oligarchs, including those arrested chief executives, as well as the former president and current prisoner Cahangir Hajiyev, boldly and courageously announced that they knew about the atrocities committed by the brave president? These financial crimes and treasury thefts. Therefore, I personally do not feel sorry for their arrest. I just feel sorry for not saying all the words that come to my heart. After all, they are in prison. After all this, put your hand on your heart and swear. Is there any tension between Ilham Aliyev and Vladimir Putin? Can Aliyev force the Russian president on any political issues? As Amir Taimur said, his presidential pride roams in Moscow's real estate markets, auctions, markets, industrial and construction sectors, the unrecognized mountains of Abkhazia. It is not his job to raise pride and wave for Azerbaijan. Dear Azerbaijanis, be safe.
Azərbaycan üçün qürur dikəldib buynuz yelləmək onun işi deyil, dəyərli Azərbaycanlılar. Salamat qalın.